Wake up, buyer payer people. It's a beautiful day. Go grab yourself another cup of joe and say hello to Jim and Michelle Rhoads on the Buy Here Pay Here Morning Show. Take it away, you two.
Hey, good morning, everybody.
Howdy.
Happy
Welcome
Wednesday.
to a Wednesday. Yeah. So a little bit late here, some technical stuff, and it took a little bit. I don't know if you saw it. It's kind of delayed, like it almost restarted the stream, after several seconds in, but everything looks to be okay. I think we're live. If anybody listening in will just chime in and let us know that you're hearing us and that the stream is in fact streaming.
Technology.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works.
We've been really fortunate with the podcast.
We really have.
We sit here and go live, and we have a lot of, we won't say the internet provider, but our internet gets interrupted a lot.
Yeah.
Mostly since construction happened in our area.
Yeah.
And so for it not to interrupt the podcast, we're pretty fortunate, really.
Yeah, we really, really are.
Yeah.
And we enjoy having, well, not enjoy, but it happens every once in a while where it's like the soundboard or the
hardware,
so it is there's a lot of little moving pieces to keep track of, so
for sure.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, we got a really fun topic today, and we can dive into it. The other announcements are just a quick reminder that we have Brent Carmichael coming on Friday. And so we'll get an update about the conference and all the things happening in the education side of IADA. So look forward to having Brent back here. And then the Monday after, or this coming Monday, Brent will be in Texas for the Collect the Cash, Not the Car.
Looking at a calendar.
I'm just glancing over the calendar, so just verifying that. And it looks like it's in Houston, so check it out. Find it on NIADA and go attend that thing on Monday.
So Tommy Brandis is joining us today, but not live.
Right.
It looked like it was going to work out with his schedule, and then he had some things that as we were joking around, it's like sometimes it sucks to be so popular.
Yeah, right. Poor Tommy.
Yeah, poor Tommy. So he wasn't able to be here live, so we got together with him on Monday and recorded the topic. And also recorded a lot of just talking about the stuff. But so we have clipped that. And so we're going to show that today, and then have some feedback as what do they call reactions?
We'll have reactions, and then I've got really this is a fascinating thread. So I think this will probably be a multiple episode conversation, because it accidentally, this thing started out with ChatGPT. We were asking ChatGPT to suggest some topics around White Hat Way and White Hat Wednesday. Spit one out that Michelle liked and said, hey, Tommy would speak to this one well. And so we recorded that on Monday. But that whole thread continues in our ChatGPT. And it has really taken me into an area that has always been a curiosity as somebody who lives in coaching between, as a former dealer. And so what Tommy's going to talk about today is extending credit based on character, right? So this is, and ChatGPT begins to refer to it as character lending. Yeah,
and it's just so you know, but like a little bit of context. And we'll talk about this as part of the thing, but just like before you get started watching, Tommy's been in business for more than 30 years. He is one of the old heads, he's, what are they, founders, or not really a founder, but he's like been around since really the surgence of
I think what she's trying to say when Tommy hears this, she's trying to say you're an old dude.
Not saying you're old, because we're like the same age.
No,
so
I'm older than Tommy.
So he's been around for a really long time. Jim and he came from this, Jim worked with the company that Tommy trained from on how to do this. And so there's a lot of, and
in the training days.
You've known Tommy for 30 years. And so, there's a lot of threads that are the same in both of your fabrics of your ideologies that are very, very similar. And then the third thing that goes along with this topic is Tommy doesn't use any software for underwriting.
Okay.
He doesn't. I don't think he ever has.
Probably not.
And
doesn't mean he doesn't have his own checklist.
Oh yeah, system. He has a process but he's never used something that is like predictive modeling.
Right.
And I'm not saying that that's good or better, or I'm not saying that the other way is good or better, but just I thought it would be good for people to have a little bit of context as we're starting to listen to this.
I prepared a streamer for this morning. You can read it with the rest of our audience today. So
I'm not attorneys and are not offering legal advice. Seek the advice of an attorney before act. It needs to go faster on any information shared.
So I'll play that again from time to time, because we're definitely part of what fascinates me about this is as Tommy talks about this, and people are going to hear what Tommy has to say, and they're going to say, well, what about compliance? What about compliance? And they're not wrong. And Tommy's not wrong.
And you talked a little bit about this during the thing around the compliance thing, and it's just, it's finding that balance.
And I think ChatGPT is helping me have new ways to explain that and to offer dealers some very specific things they can do to walk this line, if you will. So I think we're definitely, and this is what we do with White Hat Way. We are in the space of the intangibles, and we're talking about some things that aren't on the typical checklist. So I think this is why it starts to fascinate me in terms of, I want dealers to be able to be flexible and creative. So let's hear how Tommy approaches it.
And this whole conversation is a White Hat Way conversation.
Yeah.
Tommy is actually it's funny because we got a text message from Candace and Nick, who were our first official year of 2023 White Hat honorary dealers. Well, Tommy and Gordy Tremolin, who is just wrapping up his executive director right now of NIADA. Not the executive director. He's the board chairman of the board. Yeah. He's the chairman of the board this year, and so he's wrapping that up. So both of them, back in a conference 4 years ago, that Jim did. He was a moderator for a class during a buy here, pay here. It was the
forum, whatever they call it.
Yeah, the older
super forum.
Super forum.
Is that what they call it?
No, it was before that. It was the one that.
I don't think it matters.
Okay, it doesn't. But they were given like White Hat Way seal of approval. You're the kind of the very, very, very first one. So Tommy has been he's been a part of the evolution of White Hat Way in a way.
Yeah, and I think with Tommy's somebody that could go in the same bucket. I often describe myself as an unapologetic fundamentalist. Like I just still preach the fundamentals, right? And so Tommy and I have that in common, and we also can tie it back to football and some of those kind of things in terms of sports analogies.
They speak the same language.
Yeah.
And there are times that they're speaking the same language, and I'm just listening.
You're going to hear us speak the same language and what you're about to listen to.
All right, so I'm going to pull it on, and then I'm going to back us off because there's way too many squares and faces. So,
let's make sure
but we're going to be here, and we'll So I may have to do this or something. So go ahead.
You want me to start it?
Yep.
Oh, I have to start on my side, don't I?
You certainly do.
Okay, here we go.
Notifications all the time, and we're just kind of like.
So I started recording, so I wouldn't forget. So don't say anything you don't want to.
Gotcha. Okay.
So,
right now, we aren't starting the podcast itself yet, but
wait a minute. There's a problem. We're not at the right place in the video. So something happened in the editing. This must be the pre-edited version. So let's take it down for a minute. You guys talk amongst yourselves. Let me go fix this and find the right video. So because I had one pre-edited and
I a lot of times have things prepared for such occasion. I'm blank today. Yeah.
Okay.
So I can hum a little tune or whatever. Okay. You think we're good?
Okay.
Okay. When Tommy B, when character extends credit. So
let's try it. You got it shared?
Yep.
Good morning, everybody. We have a very special guest today, Mr. Tommy Brandis. And Tommy has intersected with the things that Jim and I have been working on since Jim and I became we, pretty much so,
right.
for quite a few years. And Tommy was very, very instrumental in offering platforms for the morning show to be able to get to a wider audience. And because he is the head honcho, founder, and guy that you have to have everything approved through for Buy Here Pay Here success.
And he's just all around good dude, right?
That too.
So don't leave that out.
That too. And Tommy, I think that you have been on the show with us quite a few times over the last few years, and always have such great insight. You and Jim come from a very similar, the same background, basically, in philosophy that was driven by Rick Reeves. We did a special a little while ago about what Rick contributed to the industry. And so when this topic came up today of when character extends credit, I'm driving the topics for a lot of different podcasts. And I was like, Tommy, that's who we need to talk to, is Tommy, around this, because Tommy had this is really stepping into, this is Tommy's paradigm, or this is his philosophy, where credit is extended based on character. So thank you, Tommy, so much for joining us today so we can have a conversation around this.
Hey guys, it seems like it's been forever, but it's great being on. Thanks for having me again.
You're absolutely
So
welcome.
Michelle mentioned the Rick Reeves thing. Of course, you and I have that in common. We both came through that training years ago. It was excellent, really foundational training. And Michelle also mentioned the word philosophy. So maybe we could just start with kind of your philosophy around underwriting and deciding who you're going to do business with.
Well, I guess it goes back to when we started. Now we're coming up, next month will be 33 years for me. So there was no internet. There was no credit. There was credit scores, but we didn't know how to pull them because you couldn't pull them on a computer. I don't even know how to pull a credit score back then. It was really an interview with the customer, and it was based on honesty, accuracy, and ability to pay. It's still on the top of our applications today. We still use
really
it.
Quick. There's three things: honesty,
accuracy of the information you provide, and your ability to pay.
Right.
So even today, when I'm working with somebody, it's like, here's the three. Can I get approved? Do you have a valid PA driver's license? Yes. Do you have a job with verifiable income? Yes. Do you live within an hour of Quakertown, Pennsylvania? Yes. You're approved. Come on in. Now we got to work the numbers. Yeah. And that's where it really starts.
Yeah, good.
And so this philosophy is still what you work by today.
It still works. It still works. We get so in the weeds of percentages and figures and risk models and numbers and all that stuff. And I think that's all come along for banks, or to value your portfolio, or for whether it's for getting credit or selling your portfolio or something, where a banker can't understand what we're talking about. They're numbers people. So we need all these numbers and debt to income ratios and all that stuff that makes them warm and fuzzy. But to me, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's a different thing. It's like, and Michelle, you haven't been inside this part as much, but I can say that, the customer that we meet in your line of work is, they're in that category that we call unbankable. They haven't been successful in conventional financing situations. So we probably shouldn't be trying to apply conventional financing rules, right, to that. Now, we all got to use technology, and we all got to be compliant. So you're going to use technology where we need to. And we have a chance in our Buy Here Pay Here space to go beyond that. So that's the part I really look forward to talking to you about today, is like, you got your list, which you have your things that you go through, and now how do you go about judging character of this party and this customer and deciding if you're going to do business with them?
Well, obviously, I think we have to, and it's something that you guys said in a morning show or a podcast a few years ago that stuck with me. Everything I usually has is something that I picked up along the way that has stuck with me. And it was like, you have to put yourself in the customer's shoes when they're walking through the door. And you have to think, okay, say this customer has heard no 6 times before, and you are the last dealership on the block, and they have to build up they have to have everything right. They have to have their script down perfect. I've been here a certain time. I've been here. Because if they screw this up, they don't have a car. And if they don't have a car, they can't provide for their family. So they're going to do it as hard, and they're going to put guards up to make sure. So the number one thing that you have to do is make sure you can break down that wall and get to know the real person there. So I think it's how you approach that person, and how you talk with them. It's great with my guys Gunner and Tolan, and now we got a new guy Dom that I've known. They just have fun with the customers. Break down. This is not. We're getting you a car. We're trying to help you. So it's breaking that wall down, and then just really how that customer interacts. Obviously, we use. You're not going to take somebody that doesn't have a job and is behind on rent. But even if they're behind on rent, they're going to go live someplace else. I mean, Rick always told us if it's a true need buyer, your car is more important than your house, because you can go sleep on your buddy's couch, but your buddy's not going to lend you his car to go to work. Right. So if they're a need buyer and they need a vehicle, then they're going to figure out a way to pay for it. And that's really what it's hard to explain, but good people show themselves eventually.
Yeah, I get that. And I'm not surprised. It's kind of, you touched on it, but I'm not surprised if I were working on your lot today and I met a customer, greeting one of your customers. I wouldn't be surprised if they were misrepresenting themselves, kind of, giving me some false information about their job time. They're stretching the truth, right? They're giving some information. I think this is part of where we got to be careful about technology. I heard a story not long ago about somebody had a customer come in who scored really high, and they had 24 years in their residence. Well, come to find out the person was 24 years old, and they'd reported that they'd been in their mom's address all the 24 years. Well, that looks good on the machine, right?
Yeah.
And so you got
Mom may be kicking you out because you're 24 and still living at home.
Yeah. So it's like two different. You got to get past what the screen shows, or what.
Past what the scoring model that you're using shows. Whether it's high, they can still turn somebody down, or low, and you can still approve them and why.
Right. So it's a little bit of, and it's so interesting to me. And every time I've had a chance to spend time with Steve Levine or some of those, I like testing the edge of this thing in terms of, we know we need to be consistent in underwriting, and we know in order for us to help a customer get financing, we got to sometimes be a little creative, and we got to, kind of work around the edges and live in some gray space sometime, and so this is part of the nature, I think, of our business, because we are in an unconventional box, if you want to call it that. And I think, Tommy, when I think about people stretching a job, I always think about the technique that I was taught way back in that class, and I used it as a dealer and as a manager for many years, where I'm everything looks good on paper, job, everything looks fine, and I'm moving toward approval. And as a chief underwriter, I used to always just kind of look for something in there that I could pick apart, like in the credit report. And that my example, Michelle's heard me use it 1,000 times. Like if the customer's saying I lived in Quakertown for 3 years, and for 4 years before that I was in Philadelphia, and then I pull their credit report and it says 6 months ago, Phoenix, Arizona. Now I've got something to talk about. And so I'm going to go to the customer, even though I fully expect I'm going to approve this customer in about 15 minutes. I'm going to send them home in a car. I'm going to go sit with them, and I'm going to have a conversation that says, you mentioned that you lived here. It says on your application you lived here 3 years. And let me just remember, when you sign the application, we explained to you, our decision is based on honesty, accuracy of the information, right? So on and so forth. And so I say, I'm so close to, and figuratively, I'm this close to giving the keys, right? I'm so close to being, but I need to understand something. You indicated you've been 3 months or 3 years here, 4 years prior to that. Why does it say that you lived 6 months ago in Phoenix, Arizona? And then I just get quiet.
Yep.
And I let them explain what that is. And 9 times out of 10, there's a perfectly good explanation. But what I like about it is right before we hand over the keys, it drives home this idea that honesty is a big deal with us, because we're starting a relationship, and we want to be starting that based on a deep level of trust. Like we want to trust one another, right? And so this is where
that's exactly
right.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think listening to Gunner talk about it, say, look, we've been doing this for 32 years. We've been in a small community. We're not here to screw people. We want to help you, but the only way we can help you is if we really know your situation. Right. And then we will build on it. You know how Missy used to go through the want ads and try to find jobs for people. You know, it's that, and that's truly how we do it. You know, and you got to really want to do it. You got to really believe. It goes back to, I said it before, our customers are survivors, and we were talking about it. We were sitting out at the Buy Here, Pay Here United Summit, having dinner with a couple other dealers at Peter Luger's, and we're paying for this really great overpriced steak and wine and all that. And I'm looking around, I'm like, you know, this meal is going to cost probably what our customers make in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And we're gonna eat steak and drink wine, and these people have to live and provide and support a family on that money. So we have to figure out how to help them and keep them from failing.
Yeah.
So, and if you get the customer comes in, if that customer really understands that, then I can work with anybody. You know, I can work with anybody. I'm at the philosophy. I've been watching. So, you know, we keep chasing you keep chasing the higher ACV car because you can think you're going to get a better customer. And I don't believe that is true. And I think we all know it's not. We just put that in our head. We just spend more money and put more risk out there, and cost ourselves more money.
It looks nicer.
As you work your way back, and you work with a true customer who really needs help, who is out of options, that's the customer that will work with you, and will take a less expensive car, but still a quality vehicle. It's just not, you know, a dream car. But that's how we started this business. We started this business on providing dependable transportation to good people. And that's what we need to get back to.
Yeah. Well, I think too, for you to say we think a higher ACV is a better customer, that suggests that this customer at the low ACV is a poor or bad customer, and maybe it's just the way we manage that customer. It's not that it's just so it's back to the character thing. I'm not surprised they might misrepresent themselves when we meet them, because they're in a tough spot. They're backed into a corner. And so I think what we have to do is be prepared to get past that, and sometimes it takes a little work. And this is what makes me nervous, Tommy. I mean, you were in this just like I was before all the technology, and it's like, that's a little what makes me nervous about the technologies. We lean a little too much on that. We lean a little too much on the GPS. We try to approve everybody. And then if we don't, and you'd say it better, like the managing the collection side that's the difference between success and failure. It's way more on that side than it is, because we can underwrite a deal, and we can make what looks like a bad customer on paper. We can make that deal work when we have the right kind of, you know, mechanisms in place on the collection side, and we can support that customer. But yeah, I think that's you kind of got to the part of it. What am I leaving out, Michelle?
Yes, I was just enjoying. I was eating my popcorn over here, and it's just like preached. It's great stuff.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Well, I wanted to head into this philosophy you have about spinning, which direction someone is spinning, and weave this into the conversation, because that is to me so much more powerful than a software. And you know, when I look at the GPS and the underwriting, that's, to me, when you talk about we're leaning in too heavily into that, making the decision. It's meant there to be a safety net, not the brain behind everything.
And that's the thing. You go in, stability is the biggest thing. I mean, you can go in and click a button and you change 3 jobs, and you have no stability. But the person changed the job. They went from, you know, this job went from a fry guy at Burger King up to a line manager at Wendy's or whatever. I'll use my sales guy Tolan right now. He applied for us. He worked at Arby's, and he was 17 years old, and he had recently turned 18. And he went from staff to shift manager at 18 years old. 6 months. 6 months.
Wow.
Now this kid comes in for an application. You're throwing him out. He's an 18-year-old kid. He's got 6 months on the job at Arby's, and if you put it in the credit model and he lives at home, he's gone. He turns down. So I asked him, I said, how did you become the shift manager so fast? He goes, I was the only one that showed up for work every day. and they wanted to promote me before, but I couldn't be promoted until I turned 18. So on my 18th birthday, they promoted me to shift manager.
Yeah.
And with pretty much that conversation, there's character, and that's the same character that I used to hire Poland that I would use to approve a deal. And he's a great kid working for me for over a year now.
Yeah. And how many dealerships, and you've got a lot of buddies that are dealers. How many dealerships would have broomed that out? It's like, it's a no. It's a no. It's a no.
It would have never made it to the building.
It would have never made it to the building. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that's part of what we spend our time looking at, is trying to help dealers. And I just had a meeting earlier today with some people on the tech side, and I'm just always telling them, look, and the way that we would build a process for somebody, a sales process, is I'm always trying to help get more customers as close to the decision maker as I possibly can.
Well, and that's absolutely it, because dealers can say, well, that's great, but most of our people aren't. And it's like, you don't know that till you have a conversation with them.
Right.
Outside of like, how much down payment do you have? How long have you been on the job? And do you have a state driver's license?
Yeah. It's, we get it, Tommy. Like, people are trying to scale their business, and they're trying to be efficient. So they use the technology, and they make quick decisions, and they're playing the math, just like you just came from Vegas, like, so you're just playing the mathematics, right? But I think what we're hearing you say is, if you will invest a little more time right there and get to know that customer, you can have some of those customers that are with you for decades.
You can, and the problem I'm seeing today, and I get it, to get in this, I don't even know anybody who is getting in this business today. I mean, I think if the only people getting in this business today are millionaires, and if I was already a millionaire, I probably wouldn't be going into this business. That being said, it's a business that you can make money like no other if you do it right. But our customer base, you just have to work with them. They need help. You just have to work with them. Like, I see people, 8 references. We used to get 8 references. We used to get 10 references. Now we get to emergency contacts, and they're the people they're an emergency contact. We went through everything. There used to be some phone calls. Bring in your pay stubs. Well, if they don't have pay stubs, they're not coming in. Well, don't worry about the pay stubs. We'll get to the pay stubs if we have to. Everybody's getting into this business to try to have zero charge-off. Yeah. That's not our business. Our model is, you're going to take charge-off. We are, according to the banks, 100% of our customers will not pay you. And somehow, 70 to 75% pay you. So that's that realm. Now you got to decide, how much risk you want to put out there and who you want to deal with and all that. But there's good people that if you work with them, they'll be there for decades and bring their kids in and their friends. Referrals is, your referral count is a true level of how you are as a dealer. If you have high referrals and high repeats, then you're probably doing it right. If you look at your referrals and get no referrals, I guarantee you got a problem.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's and that's very consistent with what we talk about. I think that I lost a bit of a thought, which happens on occasion.
It was because my phone rang. I forgot to turn it on silence. It's my mom.
It happens because of our age.
That too. I truly do. Did you find your thought?
It'll come back. Go ahead.
Okay. I truly do appreciate, when
are you losing one now?
No, I'm not. I'm like, how long of a monologue do I want to go through? My shtick is good humaning, and it's systems and processes, and Jim, he understands the numbers and he understands the operational things, and I don't really need to.
No, you don't.
And so I love that your approach to having a buy here, pay here business is about good humaning. It's about being a good steward and champion for our customers that are disadvantaged.
Yep.
And I've said it before, Tommy. We talked about it, I'm sure, on prior podcasts, but you used the phrase, that was the thing I forgot, was you used the phrase, our customers need help. And I think so many of them that we meet, and your guys back at the dealership see this all the time. The customer needs help, but they don't really know how to help themselves. They don't know what's available. They sure don't know your finance program. They don't know what's possible. They don't know what can be done with a trade. And it's just lots of little stuff. They don't know how to do that stuff for themselves. And so I think this is where, we got to be able to talk to them. We got to be able to ask them the questions and find out what's going on. And sometimes we'll find solutions that they don't really know even exist in order to make something happen. So I think this is the part that I think it's back to the humaning thing. We gotta be prepared to invest a little time. And is it, are there days that you think we spend a lot of time with a customer that doesn't ultimately get approved? Yeah, but that pays off for us somewhere down the line, right?
Well, yeah, and I always say that you got to treat every customer like it's your last customer, and you need that sale, because if you do it right, if you bring somebody in and you immediately go to broom them because they don't have this or they don't have that, then that customer's just going to go tell all their friends that they got broomed.
Absolutely.
There's another one that's just going to tell no. Of course. So if you give them every opportunity, we have some that we work with for 3, 4, 5 months, building up a game plan until they came in to buy a car. You can't buy it today, but this is it. And we keep in touch with them and 3, 4, 5 months down, I take a picture and have a little story of every one of my customers that we put on Facebook. And there's always a little story. And on some of them, we worked. It's been weeks. We worked with them until they saved up or they had this. They were getting another job, and then we bring them in. But yeah, it's truly they are a part of the family, and a lot of people don't want to do that, and I understand it. So it's gonna, that's where the higher risk comes in. Where you gotta let's buy a higher car and let's over recon it because we think we need all these things. And make the customers jump through hoops with 10 references and belittle them because we're, and then they just don't pay anyway.
We're coming to this, that Jim and I, as we've been working on our business, is it's about, that whole known, liked, and trusted. You can't be known until the people know the story, and what you do with the post is like, this is a story, and people relate to stories. They relate to stories a lot more than they relate to, oh, look at the red Camry that's a 19 or a 2021, with X amount of miles. But it's like, oh, that's pretty cool that they work. And even if it's not necessarily the story they are experiencing right now, they see someone who, it is a relationship. And so you're telling the story. And I just love it. I use that all the time on this podcast, Tommy. And it's like, Tommy Brandis does, it's like the gospel according to Tommy Brandis.
God.
But it's because, that there are some
people, I think there's some people out there getting sick of hearing it.
I'll tell you,
they have a mute button.
As the wife of another graduate of Rick Reeves, it's like you guys geek out about this kind of stuff, and like you get it, and it's always good if I don't just only give examples that Jim from when he was a dealer. True. So it's you're just really, you are a shining light on those.
But you gotta really want to. Thank you. I appreciate that, Michelle. I really do. And it's. You just really have to really want to help people, and they'll see through it. You can't fake it. Just like the customer can't fake their act coming in to try to buy a car in line from you. You can't fake it. It's got to be real.
Well, it's just like, be real. And I was thinking about that situation. Even those customers that you have to say no to or not today, they go away seeing that you guys have put in a lot of effort to try to figure, they can just see that you tried much more than probably the 3 people they talked to before you.
And when they go to work and someone says, well, did you get a car? It's like, no, but they're really working with me, and they're really, and so those are the kind of stories that our customers can go and tell as well, because that's even better marketing.
And that's where and that's where you got to be. I mean, when you're genuine with the customers, then they go out and market. A small dealer like myself, I don't have $10,000-$15,000 a month to, boost on Facebook and all that stuff. I got to get my word out with my customer base.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, good stuff.
One quick thing. I started in our own training and sales. I started using the expression a lifetime handshake. When I meet somebody for the first time, trying to shake their hand, as though it's a lifetime handshake.
Hi, welcome to the family.
I like that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm gonna steal that and put it in the pack with all my other stuff that I've stolen over the last 33 years.
We do that.
I say that. I say I have no organic. I don't have an organic thought. I said everything. It's been taken and twisted in some shape or form, along the way.
I think that one was organic. It was an original thought for me, but it's like it's the idea that I'm bringing a mindset to. I expect you're going to be with us for a long time, right?
Right.
So if I bring that mindset into every business partnership, customer that I meet on the lot, whatever, like it's just about bringing that mindset to my approach to that customer. But one quick thing, Michelle, this is going out on a White Hat Wednesday. It was June 1st of 2022 that we did the first White Hat Wednesday because Tommy said, hey, why don't you call it White Hat Wednesday?
Yep.
White Hat Wednesday ever since.
White Hat Wednesday, that was my 30th anniversary, and now it'll be 2025, and it'll be another month. It'll be 33 years, and thank God Gunner's running the show. I got out of his way, and I'm playing executive director for Mid-Atlantic IADA and trying to help dealers dealers learn what I did. It's fun.
Awesome.
Love it.
And we extended the invitation for you to join us for our certification program at NIADA this June, but you've got a lot of hats to wear.
Mm-hmm.
So
I will be in Vegas. I will be sitting in a meeting probably across the hall.
We'll wait.
All good.
Doing executive director things.
We'll figure out how to get you that certification. It's all good.
Hey, Tommy,
we'll figure
thank
it
you
out.
so much for taking your time.
Thank you, guys. It's always great talking to you guys.
We really appreciate it.
Okay, I'm going to take that out.
Good idea. There's so much there. I mean, we can stay a little bit and kind of round out some of the edges. Go ahead.
What I'd love to do with this is to bring this conversation back, maybe next week or something like that. I know that we've got a bit of our schedule filled up for the next couple of weeks, but this is something I'd like to return to and expand on.
Yeah. So I think for today, what I can to invite people to join us perhaps next Wednesday, we'll pick this back up because what Tommy talks about and how it intersects with what I asked ChatGPT specifically about this subject and this whole thing you heard me touch on about. There's several pieces of what you heard Tommy say. I wrote down several of the phrases, but you got to want to help people.
Yeah.
Okay. So to me, that's always been the part about this gray space between consistent underwriting and, being gray and flexible and cooperative, finding solutions.
Well, there's something that he said that I was like, okay, that is really, really true. He says that he's like, I don't know anybody that's getting into this business unless they have $1 million or whatever. And we see it's like we talk about straight lines and squiggly lines. There's a very straight line way of approaching this business.
Mm-hmm.
It's all process numbers driven. It's putting as much money in the bank. It's like using predictive softwares, all of that to be able to let's mitigate the risk. Let's narrow that. And that's great. There are a lot of businesses are around that do that. What we are doing, what we are teaching is that there is a whole different side to this business that is good for everybody. And it's something that will facilitate helping your community and your neighbor and your brother and your sister or whatever. I mean, go into good humaning. It's a way for us to be able to, have a good, successful business because we take care, we teach a lot of the straight lines and stuff, but also being able to be a good impact to your community, a good, and to your consumer. And you can't fake caring.
Right.
And so that's okay. I mean, because there's plenty of businesses out there that, you not necessarily just in buy here, pay here, but there's plenty of business out there's like, this is a transactional company. This is what they do. And then you see others that this is a relationship. It's transactional. This is a relationship business. These are their foundational principles is on relationship. Again, nothing wrong with foundational principles being transactional. But if you want to have the repeat customers, the referral customers, be able to spend less in marketing because you've got that happening, become an asset to your community, all of these things, which also are mission-driven businesses. That's what we teach.
Yeah, and I think part of what you're touching on it. And by the way, I can't wait to introduce people next week or whenever it happens that to the way ChatGPT speaks to this relational part of what you're discussing. Like it really goes to the humaning side of the whole thing. And I think part of what you're also saying, and why Tommy would say that you don't see people getting into this business, is it's a difficult business to scale. And the only evidence you need to see is look at how many operations you can name across this country that have more than 10 locations. Like there are challenges of scaling. And once you step out of the conventional, kind of bankable customer and you step into this unbankable, non-prime sector, then part of what Tommy's talking about here and part of what makes their business work and makes their customers sticky and kind of the whole thing is it works better, at a local level. Kind of a real relationship with the customer. And so that having that kind of relationship and hand holding, which he didn't exactly use that phrase, but that's the way
that was what he was talking about. He mentioned his a gal that used to work with them in collections, and people would come in and I've got a problem, and she would go through the help wanted ads with them. It's like, let's see. I've heard story, that she would be looking up crockpot recipes because it's like, I don't have time to make dinner. I'm so busy. Just like, okay, well, here's the thing. You got to that kind of stuff.
It's just goes to the thing about, and I think the reason I wanted to kind of expand on this conversation is I'm sitting here listening to Tommy talk, and I'm thinking about how when we work with dealers who are new, we work with launching dealers into the business that are brand new, and we don't see a lot of them. There aren't people reaching out to us to get into that business. But when I think about that, I think you've heard me talk about that. For you to really decide if you want to be in the business, you ought to go sit at a dealership like Tommy's on a Friday afternoon, which is now different because there's more ACH and more card payments on the phone, what have you. But the point is, if you sat and could really hear the nature of the dialogue with applicants in the office, with customers on the phone, with customers at the payment window, that would give you a better feel for what is the fiber of a successful business. And it also helps you begin to understand, certainly if somebody's traveled and been in a lot of operations, like the difference between having a 150, 300 account portfolio and having 1,000 account portfolio. The reason the wheels start to wobble with a lot of these dealers as they move to 1,000 accounts, as an example, is that this stuff becomes stressed. It becomes more challenging to touch customers and have relationships in that way, which is why we've typically advocated for multiple locations to serve 1,000 customers or however that's going to work. Because what Tommy's talking about here is some of this intangible stuff that if we just race right past that and we think we get it, we hear you, Jim. Like, we know relationships are probably important, but we've got some good math and some good software over here.
There's nothing wrong with good math.
No, I'm just saying, let's understand that the risk that you have in that math is that you're leaving out an important component that is going to be difficult to measure, and it's going to have a real profound impact on your ability to scale. And so recognizing that early on might help you position yourself differently. We want dealers to be successful. We'd love to see them scale and help more people across the country, right? It's not that we're cheering for their success, and we think it's important. The fundamentalist in me says football, blocking and tackling. You don't get to the Super Bowl, you got good math, but you got to do the fundamentals. You can't, if you don't, you can put any sports analogy, like if you don't know how to field the ground ball, you're probably not going to get to the World Series, right? So that's the fundamental stuff that you got to really understand about this business in order to really scale it and build on those fundamentals to really do the thing well. And I think
fundamentals
this is
with heart.
Yeah.
Fundamentals, with a mission-driven kind of philosophy.
Right. So this is all part of where we think dealers, will have a lot of success as they grow. And so I just was talking to a dealer by text this morning. So we had a couple of dealers sit in as mentors in our newcomer group at V8 last night.
That was last night, yeah.
Right. And so one of them was texting me this morning.
Jim didn't. He was the moderator.
Last
it was
night
like
was
it was
big thing. Ken Yang moderated that group
mhm.
for the first time. We've been calling them moderators and waiting. They're waiting to get over there and start moderating groups. And so Ken had the opportunity to step in and moderate last night. It went really well. And I was chatting with one of the dealers, and that whole thing about mentoring is like, everybody's got different business models. There's never going to be a one size fits all in this business. And everybody's got a different approach. But I would say the one thing that I would ask them to do when we meet them is look at this part of the business. Make sure you understand the relationship part with the customer and what it means to support a customer through a 3-year note and hopefully the next 3-year note and their cousin's 3-year note. It's like we got to really think through that part of it to really have a chance to have foundational elements that are going to.
And I would just encourage dealers to understand Tommy's charge-off rate is not really different from the charge-off rate from someone that uses a lot of predictive modeling through software.
Right.
And so it's just like, what helps you go to bed feeling more confident about it. And as Tommy said, it really is unrealistic to think that I'm going to have 0 charge-offs.
Yeah.
It's the only way to get to that is to go just independent and not finance yourself.
Yeah. That's somebody else's charge-offs.
That's somebody else's charge-offs.
Right.
So and it's just funny as I kind of for the 4 or 5 years that I've been working with you, is that I see dealers coming from that want to create that same kind of model. And that's their motivation is like 0 charge-offs, lower the charge-offs, and it's like, and they're coming at it from software's predictive modeling, narrowing their underwriting, all of these things. And it's not moving the needle.
Yeah. So yeah, that's right. And so this is, if you break that down and kind of go into a microcosm, we've got some dealers in that newcomer group who are brand new. They've barely financed their first 10 to 30 contracts, whatever. And so the mentors, I rejoined the conversation at the end to kind of wrap up the meeting. And as I stepped in, the conversation was around this thing about, how aggressive should you be in your underwriting to do your first 50 contracts or whatever. So that was what they were all kind of discussing. Excuse me. And I found it interesting that, the opinions varied in terms of how to approach that, but you could hear that some of them were trying to be super cautious in their underwriting because they felt like they couldn't afford to make mistakes. And I didn't say anything, but I thought, you're still going to make mistakes. You're going to be super careful and you're going to try to do the best underwriting you can on your first 10 contracts.
You're going to be super anxious about it. You're going to be,
well, just accept that 3 or 4 out of those 10 are still not going to work out. You're going to be super cautious.
Yeah. And I know when I've watched you take dealers into business and some of our launch, because we've launched different dealers into the business and it's like your first X amount of contracts, it's just be prepared to just approve a lot of things that might make you feel uncomfortable. Just be prepared because it really is, what I see is that we get so caught up in there is universal laws of averages. And, that they say, like in sales, if you make 100 calls, you're going to get so many that are going to say yes. Well, it's like let's rip that Band-Aid off right at the beginning. Sure. And it's like, let's get through those. You're going to have some fail. Yeah. You're going to have some that, and you're going to learn so much in the process that it's worth letting go of that anxiety and just, moving through that. And I know I've watched you coach a lot of new dealers, and there are ways of getting creative about how we're going to make this deal work, but it's like, do the deal.
That's part of what happens in that stage of coaching is I do find myself having to sort of nudge the dealers into let's do business, let's create sales. They have to get comfortable because if they wait for every deal that makes them feel 100% comfortable, they're not going to do enough business. And then they're not going to create enough cash flow, which is really the conversation I rejoined last night. And so it just was a really fascinating thing. It's an element that, and I think that if you take that customer or that dealer who's new and they do their first 10 deals, that what everybody has to come to accept is that the success of those 10 deals in a small example is decided more based on how well you support that customer after they buy and stay in contact with them than it has to do with the decision about what you're looking at in terms of application, job time.
So your level of support, those 10 people could turn into 20 or 30 referrals.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make those 10 successful.
Yeah,
and they're still going to lose some.
But to understand that, when you're looking back from just this microcosm of this relationship with this individual, that we know people talk, we know people refer, we know people advise against, we understand that is human nature. And when you can help people be successful and for them to feel like they really matter to you as a dealer, that and you've got a good referral program or something like that getting that one customer, regardless of whether or not you end up having to charge off, because there are great customers that end up charging off. We hear about it every day. But that one customer, like Tommy said, what kind of referrals and repeats are you getting? Because that should tell you how successful your model is.
I'm glad he said that, because I felt that way. And we probably start to measure that in V8 to the extent that our dealers can capture it.
Yeah.
But this will probably be another ask of the DMS providers going forward is, help make it easier for dealers to be able to track that information because it is a really important indicator.
Yeah.
And we don't currently have that number.
Yeah.
With most
and when we have dealers that are working with outside capital, those outside capital people are of the mindset of banks that say, none of your loans are going to perform, so we're gonna really, really make it narrow what it is that we will accept, and you have to stay within your covenants and all of that. And so part of the other thing that we help coach people through is how do you get off of that hamster wheel?
The capital.
How do you? Yeah, because that's a hamster wheel on its own.
Yeah.
Of capital. And
takes dollars to fund. If you're going to help folks and you're going to extend financing to people who have marginal credit situations, whatever, it takes capital to do that. So we got to have capital partners. But I think the reality is some are going to fail. But I think what I would be telling dealers, if somebody came to me with $1 million, me say at some point in the conversation, if you're not prepared to do a little bit of hand holding on the collection side, then maybe this business isn't right.
Absolutely. Great conversation.
Yep.
Really a shout out to Tommy Brandis. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate he's just been so supportive of the mission because he aligns with so much of it.
He was a white hat dealer before there was a
white hat dealer before there was a white hat way. Hey everybody, thanks so much for including us in your day. We really, really appreciate it. We know you have a lot of other things that you could be doing. And looking forward to Friday with Brent Carmichael.
See.
All right, everybody, have a great day. Thanks again so much.